Hello and welcome to Advanced Audio Editing Techniques Week 1 Monday. So this is the start of the class. I know that this is a holiday week, so thank you for being here. Um, I'm aware that even if I had things due, there are probably more excuses than things done. So the first thing I want to talk about is your due dates, and then we're going to work our way back through all this core stuff. So your first three activities, two activities and a quiz, technically. Your first three weighted submissions, things that are for a grade, you see the 4% weight here, are all going to be due the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And some of these require discussion replies and stuff. Most of your projects this month will come in as discussion posts with you reviewing each other's work and giving each other feedback. So just be aware of that your work will be heard by your peers and you will be listening to each other's work. So you've got the advanced editing with slip and shuffle. This one's really designed to be a warm-up activity. It's just making sure that your Pro Tools and everything's working. Some of you may have been using other DAWs for a while and stuff, so I want to make sure your Pro Tools is working, your interface, your mic. This is your start. Some of you may not realize this, but this is technically the start of your last semester here. It's our last portfolio cycle. So this is your last semester as a senior in the bachelor's degree. So some of this may be a shift for some of you. We're getting real serious now at honing in professional output to make sure that you can take all the things that we're teaching and all the things you've already learned and use them for something that people would pay for. Okay. So you've learned a lot of things in isolation here, and we're going to start putting these things all together into finished products that can be used. Or in the case of the second half of the class, we're doing music editing. It's not a finished product, but it's a finished job. So your job as an editor will be complete and the project would move on to somebody else in the process. So let's kind of jump ahead real quick. So advanced editing with slip and shuffle will be due next Tuesday. This would normally be due this Thursday. Clear, that's Thanksgiving. So it's been pushed off to next Tuesday. That way it even gives you Monday to kind of catch up on things. So advanced editing with slip and shuffle will be due on Tuesday. Please don't hit me up on Wednesday. Be like, well, I just didn't know there's projects due on Tuesday. So everything got pushed back. So your normal schedule, just so you know what to plan for, is going to be Thursday and Monday submissions in this class. So clearly the first day is no submission, but normally you would have submissions due Monday night and Thursday night. And that works in a way with these lectures so that each lecture, the lecture before that due date, is when we introduce an activity and go over it. And then you can come in the night something's due when we're introducing the next activity and still ask questions about that night's work. So if you have issues, you can come in. In this case, it'll be next Monday. So if you have issues with any of these, you can ask questions on Monday. But we have a lot to kind of go through. So your week 1 has the advanced editing slip and shuffle 4%, and your first reading quiz. It's only 10 questions and 2% of your grade. Your book is in the welcome message. We'll get back and look at that in a moment. And then your reading assignments are here. This is all of your reading for the month. This is because I know that you have art history. So originally the idea was that you were going to read this entire book this month. I saw how much reading you have to do for art history, so I scaled it back to just what I thought was really essential to getting through this class. So if you can, please read the book. You will benefit from it. But if not, this is what's considered essential. So please don't skip out on this. I've already cut it down from an entire book to just a few excerpts. Okay. And clearly your quiz is online, so it's an open book quiz, right? So please don't cause yourself or me any grief over the quizzes. They're due at the end of each week, weeks 1 through 3, and they are on the assigned reading here from your book. So in this case, everything from week 1 is due Tuesday, and Monday of week 2 has also been pushed back to Tuesday. So you're going to have a big pile of stuff due next Tuesday. They're not big projects as this class ramps up. So this first project, it's only 4% weight because it's really easy, and we're going to go back and look at it, but it's just a warm-up project. Week 2 gets into a more complicated project with the concert promo. It's worth 10% of your grade. You're going to need to schedule a little more time for that and schedule some time to find music for it. You're responsible for locating your own music. You may not be able to find the music that you necessarily wanted with, but that's part of the industry. You don't always get to work with the music you want to work with. You work with what's going to pay you. So in this case, if you don't have music available to you, you can look up free legal downloads and find artists that are willing to do that. Bandcamp will have name your own price, where you can name a price of $0 to get albums. There are other places to access downloads of music. I know some of you do streaming only, so you will have to actually have music files here. But you can still find them. I every now and then go back and search for free music downloads to make sure that there are still some out there, free legal album downloads. You can put legal in your search description. So your concert promo will also be due on Tuesday. And that's what we would normally look at on Monday. Or on Thursday. So we're going to look at that here also today. All right, so let's rewind back to the beginning. So welcome message, welcome. It'll be interesting for you because you'll see how my, you can get to see some of my studio upgrades in live. You'll see how I went from a little 100-something pound console and some of the videos to the half-ton console that's behind me now. Submission schedule, Monday, Thursday. I said except for this holiday, we pushed everything from week 1 and the start of week 2 back until Tuesday. Then after that, it will follow this Monday, Thursday submission. The Zoom helpline. So Pro Tools, you know, it's can have technical issues. There can be issues with your different operating systems getting updated, all sorts of things. So I'm also willing and able to help, but if you need real-time help in the evenings from 5 to 9 p.m., you can get on the Zoom. You can screen share as needed or whatever you need to do to help with your problems. I got a question about the concert promo. Can you use your own music? Yes. But if you're the vocalist in that music, it's going to be challenging to do with the voiceover. You're going to want to do either have somebody else do your voiceover with you recording them, or do some manipulations to your voiceover so that your voice doesn't overlap and confuse people, right? You want a clear voiceover telling people about the concert and where it's going, and then you want your artist to be performing also back and forth to sell that. So if you're the same voice, you have to be real clear that you're not overlapping yourself and causing some listening confusion. You'll have to do some sort of editing techniques to kind of separate your voice out, which can be pitch, EQ, reverb, things like that. We'll talk about that more when we get to the concert promo. Good question. All right. Back into this. So audio tech, there's your link there, 5 to 9 on the weekdays. This class is considered the follow-up to Audio Workstations. Audio Workstations is actually a junior level course. You all took it as freshmen. So it's been a long time since you've had Audio Workstations. I understand if you've forgotten a lot of that stuff, but this class is not here to reteach it. This is not a review class. This is a moving forward class. So if you feel lost in Pro Tools, you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much I'd forgotten. Please do yourself a favor and go back and watch these videos. If you can't get the links to work for whatever reason, you can just go into your LinkedIn account. Remember, this is something that people pay a lot of money for and is a free asset to you as a Full Sail student. So make use of this LinkedIn learning, even not even for this class. Like if you want to learn how to do Photoshop or something, learn that stuff when you have the opportunity to have these videos. So they have videos in here by Frank D. Cook. You might recognize that name. That is the author of all of your Pro Tools books that you'll be reading for your certification. And they have videos on the 101 and 110. They do not have videos for the 210, which is what we're using. But 101 and 110 is basically what was taught to you in a super high-speed fashion in audio workstations. So if you've forgotten your Pro Tools fundamentals, go through these videos, and you may not need to watch the entire lesson, right? You can go through and be like, okay, I don't remember how to do this. I'm going to watch this chapter. So please take it on yourself to catch yourself up to your classmates if you feel that you have fallen behind. It's totally understandable, but it's on you to get caught up. Okay, so in association with that, this course will require passion, determination, and creativity to thrive. Best effort, all this stuff, senior level. We talked about that. So, a note about grading and submissions. This can cause some animosity later if you're not prepared for it. We have to get professional results now. You're getting to the point where you're a few months away from being in the field. If you blow your first project, you might have just wiped out your entire future in the career, right? So if you get your big break early on, we want you to be successful with it. So part of that is being able to do this stuff to a quality that somebody would actually pay to have done. If you put in 8 hours of effort on a project, but then the person still needs to hire another person to fix what you've done, or you've taken something 90% of the way to the finish line, but you can't get it that last 10%, that doesn't work in the real world, right? Somebody pays to get something 100% done. If they paid you to do 100% of something and you only do 90% of it, then they have to hire another person to do that. And if the person they hired as a Full Sail grad didn't finish it, they're not going to hire another Full Sail grad for that. They're going to seek elsewhere. So don't ruin your opportunities, and don't ruin the opportunities for all the other folks that are taking this degree. Be able to do this work 100%. So that's this. Too late in the program for effort points. Must make professional standards. Here to get you through. So at any point, you may be asked to present your project. So don't just throw away your projects when you're done. Save your projects. Remember your save as and your save copy in, and the difference in those from your audio workstation. So you can save copy in a different version, so you can go back and all that stuff. So just remember that even if your projects aren't required in the submission instructions, if there's an issue, I may need to see your project. So save them and have them ready to present if needed. Whether it's a matter of having them presented by sending in your project or just getting on Zoom and looking at your work, you'll need to be sure to save your projects for this month. For those of you that haven't been doing well with file management, I'd suggest just making a folder for this class. And then every Pro Tools session, everything that you do for this class, just keep in that class folder. Then after this class, if you want to archive that folder for later, you can. If you want to throw it away after the class is done, that's on you. So I would suggest just go ahead making a folder for AAE and then putting everything inside that folder for this month. So that way it'll be easy to find, and you won't have a lot of chaos. Every now and then I get students that lose their projects in chaos. They've actually done the work, and then we have to go through and search their computers because their naming conventions are off and nothing's saved in the right places. And then we do a save copy in to restore the files and all that. That's not good. You need to be able to manage your own files. And if you have them all at least in that one folder, then if something happens, and we know where to look to help you out, because it's all going to be in your AAE folder. And I would suggest doing that for any of your upcoming classes. So what'll happen if you go through the rubric and you're like, okay, I checked off all this stuff, but your project comes in and it's garbage. And that's a professional term. You'll be assigned a 0 and given a chance to revise your work. So it's not just that you're not just going to automatically fail the class because you messed something up, but you will have to get that work up to par before it will be assessed for a grade. So if it's just not something that's usable, then I can't assess it for a grade at all, no matter what the rubric is. It's going to be, okay, you're going to have to get this to a usable state. Then we're going to apply the rubric to grading it. Okay. So things must meet a standard of at least an entry-level professional to be assessed for credit. If it doesn't, I'll let you know it needs to be redone. And you'll be coached as needed. Now, if you know it, if you know before you turn something in, I listen to everything. So every now and then I get the opinion that folks think I may not listen to stuff. So they just try to turn in things thinking that I'm just going to check off on it, be like, oh yeah, here it is. It's done. We're cool. I listen to everything that's submitted very carefully. So if there's something wrong, I'm going to notice. If you've already noticed what's wrong, then all you got to do is that'll help me for you to know. Because there's a whole different level of coaching that's like, hey, this student didn't hear that this is a problem, compared to, okay, this student knows this is a problem, but just doesn't know what to do about it. So don't think I'm not going to hear and just hope that it slides by. If you hear that something's wrong, talk about it in the discussion. Let me know, and I'll let you know what we can do to fix it. Or if it's within the realm of reason, some of you are very much perfectionists, so every now and then someone gets really upset about something that's not a big deal, and it's okay. Other times, you let things fly by that are very much a big deal and have to be corrected. So if you hear something that's bothering you in your thing and you don't know what to do about it, just let me know when you submit it. And if it needs to be corrected, we can talk about that and make sure your corrections get in. And if it's fine, we can talk about that too. So any concerns in your project, you just let me know in the project feedback. We will have these lectures twice a week, except for this week, obviously, and they will be archived. So it's considered mandatory. You are supposed to watch these. This first lecture, we got all this kind of core stuff to go through, but for the most part, what will happen when we start these lectures is we'll jump right into questions and answers on what's due that night. And then we're going to go into going over the instructions and expectations of upcoming projects. So these lectures will try to let you know exactly what I expect when grading these. So there's no excuse for not knowing what's expected of the project just because you maybe miss some of the text or some of the instructions. I'll let you know here, and also try to put them into an industry perspective. How does this apply in a job role? What would your job be here? What would your job title be here? Where are the limits of what you can do? This is one of those cases. Some of these things, if you go too far, it's bad, right? So some people think, well, just the more I do, it's going to make people impressed. But sometimes if you get outside your job lane, that can also cost you your job. So people don't want their job stepped on. So part of this is knowing where your job starts and where it ends. And we talk about that in class. An extended numeric keyboard like this is recommended but not required. So we do not have to have this. But if Pro Tools is like your thing, what you want to be doing, you're going to want to have one of these, because in the world of Pro Tools, you may remember for AWK, these numbers and these numbers are not the same. These are completely different keys, and they operate differently for different sort of hotkeys and scenarios. So there's things that you can only shortcut with these keypads, and other than that, you have to go clicking around the menu with the mouse or your trackpad. Pro Tools operator certification. I'm going to remind you this now and again at the end of the class. All you need to do for this class is make an 85 or better, which you should all do. I have a great success rate at getting people through with an 85 or better. Sometimes it takes some redoing of work, but you get there. So if you're feeling frustrated and like you're not going to make it, just know that if you keep working and trying, then I will keep helping guide you until you get to this grade. So almost everybody ends up getting an 85 or better in this class. Some have to work a lot harder for it to get there, but we get you there. So all you really have to think about right now for this is just go into your MyAvid account and make sure it is your student.fullsail.edu email. If it is not, there's nothing I'll be able to do to assist you weeks or months down the road when you want me to. I'm not an employee of Avid, so when we do this testing, I'm able to access your testing and apply your testing to your student email. I cannot do so to any other email address that you have, and if you did not change this email, I don't have access to your account to merge those or change your password or any of that sort of thing. I'm not an Avid employee. I have very limited access. I can only authorize your testing based on your student.fullsail.edu email. So if you'll just go ahead now at the start of class, I'll remind you again at the end of class, but just go ahead now, just open up your MyAvid, make sure that your email's right. You might also want to check, make sure that you're running the latest updated Pro Tools and that your subscription's still valid. Every now and then there's some sort of hiccup and people's subscriptions get lost. So you want to right away before something's due. Don't wait till the night our first projects are due, which will be Tuesday night, to open up your Pro Tools and then find out that your subscription's expired or something. You want to open up your Pro Tools today and make sure everything's good. If it's not good, let me know right away and contact Avid, and we will get things worked out one way or another. Worst case scenario, if you cannot operate your Pro Tools, you'll have to withdraw from the class. There's no alternate for this class. We can't use Live. We can't use Logic. This is a Pro Tools specific class. So you absolutely have to have your Pro Tools operational. And then all the way down here, this is your books download. When you open it up, there'll be a PDF showing the passwords. So for this class, all of your reading is in the 210 Ilm book, but this also includes the 101, the 110, and the 201 books for your convenience. But 210 Ilm is our textbook for this class, and that's what your reading assignments come from. Let me check the chat here. Yeah, so I'll go through that. You said you already resolved it, but once you go in there, you can just, from your MyAvid account, you can go through and add or change your email address. What happens, though, is if you don't do it now, if I add your student email for the testing, and that's not what your account is set up to, it makes a duplicate account. And then I can't make those go together. You have to reach out to Avid and try to get them to do it. And they get very upset about it because we're supposed to tell you not to do that and not to use your personal email. So sometimes they give some pushback on it, but there's really nothing that I can do. It's you and the grace of Avid after that. So you just have to make sure that it gets changed now. So that way you don't end up with a duplicate account with your student email that you don't even have access to. So yeah, it would be nice and simple if they would let you know, hey, this account doesn't exist when it happens, but it doesn't. It just makes a dummy account that nobody has access to. So that's why it's so essential that you go in right now and make sure that that's your correct email, because once it's not, and a duplicate gets made, it's beyond my ability to help. I'm pressing that, as I just recently had a student last month that was very upset with me, and I think he thought that I was just punishing him for not having followed the instructions in the class, but there was just literally nothing I could do. He had to go through Avid for it. But he contacted me and a bunch of other teachers and everybody else, and there's nothing any of us can do. We are not Avid. This is an additional thing that your program director, Brian Smithers, negotiated with Avid to do as a benefit for those that took this program here in audio production. If you take this, if you don't take advantage of this here in this school, then I've seen some of these courses offered, and they're usually several $1,000s to go through the Pro Tools certification courses, and you have to show up on site somewhere, sit in a room with a proctor test and all that stuff. So as far as I know, we are the only institution that Avid has granted to do remote testing the way that you'll be allowed to do it, and to not have to pay all that additional money. So it's a pretty neat benefit to be able to get. All right. So that's everything essential out of the welcome. Of course, you can watch that video. Live classes, if you're here, you've already found this, right? Found the link. Handy dandy Pro Tools shortcuts. So I've made a short list here of the ones that I think will save you time in this class. So over the course of this class, these handful of hotkeys may save you like 30 minutes to an hour of work. Over the course of the month, learning more can save you more. And then what really going to happen in the real world is whatever job you kind of get into, if you're using Pro Tools, you'll start to learn the hotkeys that apply to your job. If you're in post-production or whatever, you're going to learn the things that you're using all the time. You're going to learn a lot of hotkeys in your next class, which is vocal editing, and be expected to use them. You're not required to use these in here, but I want you to get warmed up to the thought of using them. And if you could just kind of add in a few, each time, then you'll start to learn these and save time. Escape to toggle your edit tools, super handy. We're not doing any mixing, but if you everything here is going to be an editing process, so we'll talk more about that. But if you need to return your faders to Unity, the option click on the fader is really good. Command E, I use this all the time. You can also use Command Focus B, but I started before they had that, so Command E has been my go-to for editing and making a slice. If you see this is a number pad 8, so this is one of the ones where you have to use this for. So if you don't have one of these, you can't use that one. But we will be using a lot of Beat Detective in weeks 3 and 4. Dynamic transport. This can be pretty handy when you're doing editing over across a small area and you just want to keep it rolling around. It's kind of like a loop edit function. Dynamic transport confuses a lot of people, but basically it's how a lot of other DAWs just kind of natively operate. So if you're using dynamic transport, it may just seem normal to you. Command F, batch fades, we'll be using a lot of those coming up. Keys are like to say, what is Beat Detective? We're going to learn a lot about Beat Detective. But we're not going to use it for the first 2 weeks. So let's talk more about that in a couple of weeks, all right? But it is a tool that you use to edit audio and adjust the timing. Center selection, shuffle. So you can read through all these. You kind of get the thing. Nudging. These are super handy. The control, comma, period. Or if you have the number pad, you can just use the plus or minus on the number pad, which is really handy to use. And then there's this. This is still linking you to the version 2018. But you can click up at the top, kind of center if you can see where that is. And you can pick different versions. Now, the cool thing about Pro Tools is they almost never do away with a hotkey. There's a few that I think are missing from when I started. But for the most part, the hotkeys will stay and they'll just add more. So... And the menus can change. The menus will change names and everything else. You can't get to the event preferences, event operations preferences, without going to using the extended keyboard or going to a menu. And over the years, they've changed the names of that menu and where those things are. So I had to look up that the other day because it's like, I know how to get to this with a hotkey, but you all don't have this extended keyboard. Where is it in the menu? And now it's under the clips list. So menus and everything can change, but the hotkeys will generally stay the same. So there are folks now that have been using Pro Tools for so long, they have no idea where any of the stuff is in a menu, but they can still operate it all through hotkeys. So if you're looking at this, it's really cool. So if you go over anything, it highlights the keys on there for you. So if you don't recognize a symbol or something, then you can just kind of hover over it. And it's going to light up what you have to push. So the ones that are going to be particularly effective for you all in this class are going to be the ones in this Command's keyboard focus. That's when the little A to Z is on in the corner of your edit window. And it'll be top right corner of your edit window. And so you'll have all these that don't really require qualifiers, although now you've got these ones that have Command. The R and the T I use all the time. That's over here, the zoom out, zoom in. Copy, paste are still normal things. So Command keyboard focus, check these, see what's going to help you. Okay. Now the other ones that we're going to use a lot, if you go down here to the left side, it divides things by category. So editing, nudging, trimming. Clearly, this is advanced audio editing, so the more of these that you can work in, kind of the faster you'll be getting going. edit modes and edit tools. So these function keys for shuffle, slip, spot, and grid, those can be very helpful. I already showed you the escape, which kind of toggles through them all. If you can only remember one, the escape will just kind of, you just keep clicking it till you're on the right one. But if you want to go directly to what you want, remember these function ones. Be careful with these. I noticed that some people get their grid and nudge values all crazy, and that may come from just accidentally hitting these keys or something and getting things going wild. Remember that in Pro Tools, like if you hit some keys and you don't see happening what you think should happen, something else probably happened. So you need to kind of make sure you can look in your edit list or hit Command Z to undo to make sure you didn't just do some crazy thing that you never thought about, because almost any combination of keys will come up with something in Pro Tools. Elastic Audio, we're going to be getting into a lot more of this in weeks 3 and 4. There's a few little hotkeys for that. All right, so you can go through all these, and this is just a handy site. If you don't already have it bookmarked, I just recommend you bookmarking this, and just know that they'll keep updating it. You can turn your Ultimate on and off, depending on what kind of Pro Tools you have. So very, very nice website. I don't get paid to send people here. I just very much appreciate that they did this. I started learning hotkeys from the Pro Tools manual. It was way more difficult than having it divided like this. So this is a very nice way to have it. All right, so this is a general question here. Would I recommend moving totally over to Pro Tools as a career choice? It depends on your career. As a content creator, I generally like to work one-handed. I left Pro Tools for many years and use Ableton Live almost exclusively in conjunction with my hardware, because I was working with electronic music, loop-based music for everything, manipulation of loop samples and other things like that. And you can kind of work with one hand on the mouse and then one hand on your gear. There's a reason why they have Pro Tools operators as a specific credited job at studios and albums, because Pro Tools generally likes to have both your hands and your entire brain involved. Like Pro Tools wants all of you. So unlike Logic and other things where you can kind of twiddle around and it's going to try to make things happen for you and make some music happen, Pro Tools is only going to do what you tell it to do. You know, so it's not going to be like Logic and just put up a bunch of stuff, put up a bunch of effects, route a bunch of things for you. Pro Tools will be like, okay, you tell me what you want and we're going to do it. So it kind of wants you to have a plan of action and then go for it. Now, if you're going to be working with any sort of major studio or with film and post-production, you need to be pretty good with Pro Tools, and anywhere from decent with Pro Tools to expert level with Pro Tools. And for me, I have a hard time, particularly with hotkeys and everything, remembering what's what. I also have a hard time learning multiple languages. It's probably the same part of the brain. So for me, if I'm needing to use Pro Tools for what I'm doing or for something major, then I will try to stick in Pro Tools for almost everything around it, so that my brain kind of stays in that Pro Tools operator mode. But you know, I still keep Logic, because it's easy to, as a songwriter and a creator, it's easy to whip out a creation really quick in Logic, and then take that over to Pro Tools for editing and mixing and interfacing with different studios. So, if you think you're going to be using a lot of Pro Tools or interacting with clients that do use Pro Tools, then it helps to really submerge yourself in Pro Tools. But it is not the only game in town anymore. A lot of the game sound design folks are using Reaper these days, which is free. A lot of people in sort of electronic music and DJ-based music are in Ableton. But even so, like the larger people of that still end up over in Pro Tools for the studio mixes of things, and then it may go back to Ableton for their sets or whatnot. And then Logic, a lot of composers use Logic because it kind of has some of everything. You know, whatever you need, Logic has a version of it right there, and you can work really quick. You can, you know, drag in their loops and everything's in time and in key and all of that stuff for you. So there's definitely different benefits depending on what you're doing. If you're doing strictly tracking, editing, mixing, you're probably going to be in the world of Pro Tools. And even if your clients aren't, you can export out of whatever they did into audio, make those commitments there, and then do your mix into Pro Tools, which is actually always a nice thing. I'll even things when I make them in Logic, I like to export them and bring them into Pro Tools, and that way they're committed. I don't get back to fiddling around with fixing this, you know, filter on this synthesizer or changing out this note here or there. Those are done. They're committed. I've got audio. I can EQ it. I can compress it. I can add some delays or whatever, and I can chop it up. So it's good to kind of make a commitment at some point and force yourself into that commitment too. Yep. If you're getting into the hotkeys and high-speed editing, you know, nothing's going to be faster than Pro Tools. If you're a mouse clicker, they can all kind of be similar. But if you're wanting the utmost efficiency, you're definitely going to have the ability to speed up with Pro Tools in a lot of situations. And a lot of this class is going to be about that. This first couple of weeks, I'm going to do kind of radio editing and let you kind of fiddle around. You can mouse around and all that and be creative. The second half of this class is going to be about developing a really high-speed workflow so that you can do in one sitting what may have taken 2 weeks to do in another DAW. All right, so let's get out of our shortcuts there, hotkeys. So archive classes will be here. You'll have 2 classes a week, except for this week. So let's move on in. So after this class, every class will just start off with some questions and answers. You know, I'll see if anybody has any questions, and then we'll move right into the project. So this whole, you know, time that we've just spent won't happen again. So all of your other classes will be shorter. So don't be scared off. So advanced editing with slip and shuffle. This will be your first weighted activity. And it's really just a warm up. So don't think too much about this. As far as grading, what I'm really going to be grading on, I'm just wanting to make sure everything works, that your mic works, your interface works. You can do a voiceover. So I'm listening for your mic technique, and I may comment on it, but I'm not grading on your mic technique. I'm not grading on your language skills at any point in here. So if English is not your first language, don't worry about it. You can even do these in a foreign language. I ask that if you do things in a foreign language, also keep your language clean and what would be, you know, radio acceptable and PG language. So don't throw in some obscure bad words that I may not know in your home language and get me in trouble. But I'm listening to your technique. So, you know, even if I don't understand all the words you're saying, if the technique and delivery are good and the editing's fine, then that's fine. So this first project, we're going to do an edit in the Max Headroom style. If you want to look up like the Max Headroom New Coke commercials from the 80s, you'll get a good glimpse of that. But that was an 80s show. And back then, they didn't have Pro Tools. So it cost them a fortune to do sort of edits. And he had a big show, and you only got those cool edits a few times. But in the Coke commercials, you got, you know, a 30-second commercial that's got a lot of edits in it. So those are pretty good to look up. So basically, Max Headroom was a computerized figure, and he would glitch out every now and then with these really cool glitches. So we're going to do the same thing in just a few minutes using Pro Tools, what might have taken them, you know, weeks to put together back then. And that should hopefully help you appreciate the ease of what you can do here. So with Audio Suite, we can compress, can EQ, reverbs, delays. So we're doing everything from a perspective of like sound design here because we're only editing. We're not doing any mixing in this class. So we're going to break a lot of the rules you may have already learned, and you're going to get again in your mix class a couple months from now. But for this, we're going to process everything as it's sound design. So we're not going to have any sends, returns, none of that routing stuff that you can do very well in Pro Tools. We're not doing it. We're using Audio Suite to process everything directly to the file. So any plugin you have in Pro Tools should be available in Audio Suite, and it actually rewrites the audio of the file when you apply it. So you're doing a sort of a destructive process to the file. You'll still have your other files there, but you're actually rewriting the audio. So if you're doing reverb and delay, remember that if you've been doing reverbs and delays on a send, as you do with proper mixing, that 100% send would only be 50-50 on your signal, right? Because you'd have your dry signal coming out, and then at 100% send, you'd have a matching wet signal. So the most that you would ever have in that scenario would be up to 50%. So if you're applying it directly to the sound, then you're going to put your wet dry somewhere between, usually 10 to 50% wet. You wouldn't usually go over 50%, and a lot of times you're going to be looking at the 10 to 20% range if you're trying to sound more natural. So we can do equalization, can do compression, do everything. You can hit the preview button to listen to how it sounds like. When you like it, you commit. This can be good in a number of scenarios. I was in a situation for a little bit where my studio computer was getting too outdated, and I could no longer run the same size sessions that I needed to work on. So I would actually have to use Audio Suite a lot for my mixing and commit those to the tracks to keep operating, because I didn't have enough power to run all my reverbs and delays and everything and compressors. I would have to make that commitment and write those files in. So, and I never thought I'd have to do that again, because after years you're like, oh, I got this computer, it's awesome, but comes out a few years down the line, everything takes a lot more processing power, and you can't hang in anymore. So Audio Suite can help save you when you're running out of processing power. But it's also just good to know, and it's good to, if you're making sample libraries, loop packs, making things for your workspace, or doing what a lot of you may be wanting to do, which is design for like game audio and things like that. This is the way to go. So in this first exercise, I just want to really see it all work. So I recommend highly compressing your vocal. You have, I believe the BF76 compressor comes with your Pro Tools, which is an 1176 model. Very popular for use on radio vocals and things. You've heard it on a million albums, the 1176 style compression. So I recommend using that and really slamming your vocal. Just hit it hard. This is not music. These are short clips. So we've warned you about don't ruin things with over compression and everything. When we're doing this stuff for for these radio spots, you can just really slam it. And if it's too bad, I may comment on it, but it's not something you lose points on. So this is your time to kind of experiment with these things. Don't worry too much about overdoing them. If they're overdone, I'll let you know. But do that, and remember you can do it in layers. So like a typical workflow for this might be you take all of your recording, you might take the entire vocal recording, then compress it before you even start editing with Audio Suite. So then it's compressed once, and then you might chop it up, make your stutters and delays, put some reverb on this sound, put some pitch on this sound, put some echo on this sound, and all this stuff. And then after you've done all that, you may take the whole thing again, select it all, and then run it through another compression to kind of box all that in. So we should be working with no levels, no sends, no returns. We're just going to process the sounds until they sound like what we want and commit. Naming, last, first. I'm not really worried about the rest of this, but I just need to make sure it's your last and then your first name so I can sort alphabetically and don't lose your projects. 7 to 15 seconds long. So this just boast yourself. Just tell me how awesome you are as an audio editor. Even if you're horrible as an audio editor, still try to play it off. And then by the end of this month, we'll get you there. So it's one of those fake it till you make it kind of things. Don't feel bad for doing it. Tell me you're awesome. And then by the end of the month, we'll make sure that you're as awesome as you say you are. All right. Cutting clips in slip mode. and shuffle modes. So I'm going to be using those modes here. Later on in the class, we're going to be using grid mode a lot. So here, using slip and shuffle mode, audio effects processing. All of your audio submissions are going to be 320 MP3 throughout the month. I don't change it up and down to confuse you or anything. Everything's going to be that same thing. And it's going to go, if you look into your submission, you'll have these little music note icons. If you do that, it'll embed them so we can click them right in the discussion and listen from there without opening up new windows. See something in the chat? I'll check that in just a moment. So you're going to upload your MP3, and then you're going to listen to your classmates and give feedback on at least 2 more. You're welcome to give as much feedback, as much discussion as you can. In your feedback, try to ask questions about things to keep the conversation going. I want you all to learn from each other and get new ideas and kind of, be a think tank, help each other expand your thoughts and ideas. So, if you think something's cool, don't just say that's cool. Say that's cool. How did you do that? Or try to make a guess. Did you use the flanger on that sound? And they'll be like, no, I used a short delay. Try to make an educated guess. Don't worry if you're wrong, but just do something to try to keep the conversation rolling. All right, check the chat here. Yeah. Like I said, just remember that this was they were in the early days of some digital effects with very limited processing power and a lot of tape editing when they did Max Headroom. So now everything, we're going to use Audio Suite and do it really quick. Here in this image, you can see the wet dry that I was referring to. Oh, this is important to point out because this throws off some people. It's probably going to default to this use in playlist being lit up blue. If that's not selected blue, then you're not going to hear the process in the audio that you see in the session. So you want to make sure that use in playlist is highlighted. It should default to that, but if it got turned off somehow, that'll be a problem. So it's rare that comes up, but that's a thing that can be hard to troubleshoot. People aren't thinking about it. So the use in playlist lit up in blue. So the main thing about this one is don't stress. Just make sure everything works. Get everything hooked up, working. Record your vocal. Add some compression. Add some pitch, some reverb, some delay, whatever kind of weird things you want to add to it to make it sound cool, and crank out something. So it's not a thing you have to spend a lot of time on. You're welcome to spend a lot of time on it, but it should be short and easy. A lot of the questions I get are just because it's deceptively easy. People think there must be more to it that they miss. So this one's really just to get you started. Ideally, it's done in week 1. So that way, if I find out there's an issue with your Pro Tools or something like that, we can get it fixed before you lose more points. So this one's only 4% of your grade. It's really just here to be a warm-up project. Okay. So because this has now got to be 2 lectures in one, we now need to move forward into what would be our Thursday lecture, at which point we'll look at the concert promo. So moving right along. So the concert promo is going to continue the same thing. We're still not doing any mixing. Everything's going to be done in Audio Suite the same way. So you're going to use the same techniques that we use on the Max Headroom project on your voiceover for this, but this time you have a purpose. You're going to be the voiceover for a radio promo. So because it's a radio promo, there's certain things that are going to have to be there. You're going to need to identify the band we're listening to, the venue, how to get tickets, and the date of the event, right? These essential things need to be included in there. And they need to be included in a way that doesn't conflict with the singing or performance of our artist. We're adding in this hotkey, Command F, which will be for the batch fades. You do this after you finish chopping. So anytime you cut something that's not at a zero crossing point, you risk having pops and clicks. some DAWs automatically add fades to prevent this. When I was learning, we didn't have batch fades, and they taught us to like zoom in really close and always edit on the zero crossing point. Takes a whole lot of time to do that. So Pro Tools added in batch fades, and if you look in the video, I'll show you how to set up the batch fades for 3 to 5 milliseconds of feedback. So the idea is to not hear the fade, but just to make sure that there are no pops or clicks. So we do the fades as short as possible to get rid of any, to make sure that our edit actually forms a zero crossing from the fade. So that there's a, this video here will show you this. Each of these projects has included a skill set video. It may not show you every step of the project, but it shows you how to use the tools and what tools we're using. So this one has to be exactly 30 seconds long because it is a radio project. So what happens if you miss that 30-second time mark? Well, if you remember right, you have the trim tool in Pro Tools to extend and contract clips. If you click on that trim tool into the drop-down menu, you will have an option that's TCE, time compression expansion. And then your trim tool changes functions to where instead of just expanding or closing the edges of your clips, it will actually time stretch or time compress the entire clip. So you can do that to kind of cheat the timing a little bit. And this was even done back in the old days of radio. Your radio tape decks would usually have up to 20% faster or slower that you could verify the pitch. And that's where our verify plugin comes from. And then vinyl is the same thing. You usually have some sort of pitch adjustment on the vinyl where you could speed things up or slow them down. So this is not a new technique, but you can do it very easily and precisely with Pro Tools using the TCE. So one of the most important things about this is getting the music bed right. So what I would suggest doing is getting your music bed correct, then doing the voiceover. It'll be much easier that way because you'll be able to hear where your vocal should go. So it's very important that you do not put words over words. If your artist is singing words, you do not want to be talking over your artist. You want the artist to sell themselves. If these are true fans of the artist listening and you're talking all over their favorite part, they're going to be annoyed with the commercial and turn off. So we structure these in a certain way. And I actually learned this formula from somebody that worked in Texas radio and then Mexican radio, broadcasting pirate to Texas back in the olden days of radio. And this formula is still valid today. You'll hear it on the radio. When you hear concert promos that aren't any good, you'll notice they probably don't follow this formula. If you follow this formula, you will have a well-functioning promo. So I've given two versions of this here, and they're both written out differently. So this one's a little more confusing to read through, but this is the 7-song version, and it's kind of showing you how the copy link, how the copy might fit in there. So there's your words, song clip 1, song clip 2. I think it's easier to kind of follow this format here, this 5-song format, without reading the copy. So we'll look at it. So it's going to start off, it's a very simple pattern. It starts off with an instrumental. That means the part without singing. You know, if you've got, if you're doing James Brown funk, then it's real easy to find instrumentals because James Brown liked to dance. So he made sure that every song he had a big instrumental in it that he could dance to. But most songs have some part in there somewhere that's instrumental without singing. So you have an instrumental, about 5 seconds, leading into a song intro or refrain. Don't let this terminology throw you off. Chorus, refrain, hook. What we're thinking about here is the part that people can sing along to, right? So, you know, you've got a song and it's blah, 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 blah. Nobody really knows the words. And then it gets to obla-dee, obla-da, and everybody sings along, right? So this is the part that people know to sing along to. So if you're just a casual listener that's on the radio, the part you know, the hook, the chorus, the part you can sing along with. So it's going to go instrumental, hook, hook, instrumental, hook, hook, instrumental, and then you're going to try to find the ending of a song, preferably one that has like a good stinger or a drum roll or something at the end. A lot of times live albums will have, they'll have a nice flourish at the end of all the songs. Sometimes studio albums just go for the, for the long fade. It makes a pretty good cheat to get out of a song. So you want something with a flourish. If you can't find a flourish, you need to make something to bookend it. You can use some sort of impact, maybe a verify stop, or do something that just signals that, hey, this is the end. So it doesn't just sound hard cut off. It has a professional ending. So if you bookend this with a cool start and something that signifies that, hey, this is the end of this piece. So whatever garbage they play next on the radio, people know is not part of your project. So you just want to give it a solid closing. Usually a good drum roll, a drum fill, or a crash sound can do the trick. If not, you can, use your audio suite to try to make something be an ending. And that's what all this is talking about here. So there's a TCE tool, the crash on the end. If you enjoy this and you want to get good at it, try it a few more times. The hardest part is going to be the music bed. So what I would suggest is to try to get like at least 10, if you're doing a 5-song, try to get, 7 to 10 songs lined up, ready to go. So that way, if something doesn't work, you can quickly switch out. And then get your clips. This could be a handy time to use the workspace. If any of you all like to use the workspace in Pro Tools, this is a perfect opportunity for that. Take all your clips and put them into, a workspace so that you can just drag them in and out as needed. So you're going to need instrumental clips. And some of these can be from the same song. If you have an instrumental and a hook from the same song, that's fine. They don't all have to be from a different song. So you may not even use a total of 5 songs. You might use 3 songs that have instrumentals and hooks. So you're going to need your instrumentals, 1, 2, 3. And then you'll need your hooks, 1, 2, 3. So you're looking at 5 to 7 seconds per clip. Like I said, everything's not all exactly the same tempo, right? So if you don't land at exactly 30 seconds, then you need to time compress or expand. And there's a couple of things. You can take individual clips. So if you got one clip that's 7 seconds and you need it to be 6 seconds, you can just time compress that clip down to 6 seconds. Or if you get to the end and your end is like 32 seconds instead of 30 seconds, you can time compress that. Or if it's 28 seconds, you can stretch it out. Or you can add kind of a little crash with a little delay at the end to fill in that last couple of seconds. So the bounce needs to be exactly 30 seconds. That's part of the project. So if your bounce is any other time than 30 seconds, you will be deducted for that. Good question. All songs from the same artist. I prefer it that way. If for whatever reason you can't get all songs from the same artist, then you should set it up as would be realistic that you have a headlining act and a support act. So, if you've got a headlining support act, then most of your songs will be from your headlining act. Then you can have 1 or 2 clips from your support act there at the end. I like hearing it all from the same act because it makes you have to work harder. You've got to make this thing interesting for 30 seconds of the same act's stuff. If you're just going through, the hooks of 5 different acts, like a festival or something like that's just not, it's not as challenging. So really like for you to just try to take one artist and sell that artist. Even if you don't like the artist, try to imagine what their fans want and sell that artist. So the real important thing is just going to be to get this music bed right. And once you have the music bed, then you know that this is where you talk over. Instrumental, instrumental, instrumental. Some of the stuff you can do some hype up in the chorus or something like, yeah, greatest band ever or something like that, to hype it up and keep it moving. It doesn't have to be completely silent. But your ticket information, your important stuff needs to all happen in these instrumentals. And the the late policy throughout the class is 20 points per day, so just be aware of that. You have a strict late policy, and it can add up. So deadlines are important, so 20 point per day. Also, this particular project, the concert promo is not being submitted as a discussion. I don't want any sort of gray area on what would be a public performance or illegal thing of material, so it's going to be transmitted directly from you to me through the school system and FSO. So don't post it to SoundCloud, YouTube, or anywhere else, because it could be a copyright violation if you share it publicly. And I didn't want any sort of gray area with even calling the classroom a public performance. So these are the only project of the month that's not as a discussion. So this one will only be between you and I, but still keep it radio friendly and clean, because it needs to be what would be on the radio. So, George Carlin did a great skit about what words aren't allowed. If you want to watch that, I'm not going to list them all. But when I was studying radio in college, that was one of our tests, was listing all the bad words that we can't say. So keep your language clean, and 30 seconds, and follow the formula, whether it's the 5-song formula here, or if you're faster tempo, you may need the 7-song, because, if you're doing, 2 bars, 2 bars, 2 bars, up-tempo songs may not work that well, so you may have room for a few more songs. So it's still the same sort of pattern of instrumental, hook, hook, instrumental, hook, hook, basically is your pattern. And also, just a note, if done right, these should sound really impressive, because you're actually making something out of somebody else's mastered material and just showing off your editing, and oftentimes using things people recognize. So it's a good way to show off your editing, because they may already know the song, so they know what you did in editing. So this is a cool thing that you can do as like a quick portfolio piece. If you're trying to get a job somewhere, in the studio world, your resume only goes so far. What they want to really know is your work. So, if you know that that whoever you're working for is a big Beyonce fan, then you can make a concert promo for Beyonce, throw together a bunch of clips, well edited, and then boom, you've got something that will show off your editing, impress them in less than 30 seconds, because most people aren't going to listen to 5 minutes, much less hours of your material. You'll have a few seconds to impress them. So this is a good way to impress somebody that you think may hire you one day. So if you get good at this and get where you can kick one of these out very quickly, then you could use this to hopefully open up some doors into a job market. Even if it's not making concert promos, just seeing that you can do it real quick shows like, hey, this person's got some chops. I think we want them on our team. So it's a great skill to have, even if you don't plan to go into radio. And the same sort of editing can go into music production too. So, if you're doing a remix or something, it's really the same style editing. One more note on this, hard edits. So we're not looking for long fades. That can make for a clean edit, but it drops the energy. So I want to hear, if you've got something that has a strong rhythm, then everything needs to be timed out right, so that the rhythms kind of fit. So even if the tempos kind of fluctuate between the clips, you want them kind of timed out so they land right. So if you're doing 4 bars of this clip, then if you're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, then you want to go to the 5, the very next bar, and cut right before that downbeat. So that way it ends at the very end of that bar, and then the next clip starts on the first downbeat, and it will sound consistent. It will sound musically in time as the edit happens, and it will keep the energy up. You'll find that if you do like a big long fade and a fade in, it'll sound really clean, but you're never going to build the energy of the piece. It's not going to hype people up the same as doing a hard edit. And the same thing can happen in music. A lot of times, clean, slow transitions will get chopped out and replaced with hard edits. in the instrumentals of things. And this has been going on even back in the tape days. So this editing is not exclusive to radio, but it's kind of required here. You need to have these good, strong, hard edits to keep the energy up. All right, so I appreciate you all hanging out this long. I promise the other classes will not be this long, but this is kind of a 2-in-1 class. Any questions? I know I've been asking them as we went along. But one last chance before I dismiss you all. I'll do a sip of coffee pause while I watch the chat. Hour-old coffee. Nice and cold. Delicious. All right. Whoops, there are no questions coming in. You are dismissed. Oh, in the chat. Yes, all the weeks are open. Great question. Everything is open. I don't keep anything closed. But each project builds on the other. So I don't reteach a lot of things. So your first project, if you look at the video that's inside that, it's going to be showing you tips and techniques for Audio Suite. I'm not showing you that again in the concert promo. So you're going to apply those same techniques to the next project. And then after this, we're going to apply all of these techniques and the fades and everything to the radio imaging, which will be next. So each one builds up the skill set. So they need to be worked on in order, but you're welcome to get ahead. If you get ahead of the lecture, just let me know and I'll be happy to either give you a lecture from a previous month or just go over any questions and answers with you. But yes, you are welcome and encouraged to work ahead. And on that note, the quizzes. There's only 3 quizzes this month. They're all in that assigned reading in your book. I suggest just taking all the quizzes right away so you don't have to worry about thinking about them and remembering them later. They're open book quizzes, and they're just kind of roughly to let you know, give you a little insight of how the questions will look and work in the Pro Tools certification. For those that haven't taken any of the certification tests yet, they are extremely challenging. They are very detailed, and there's a rotating question bank. But these quizzes are not as challenging, and there's a lot less questions. There's no rotating question banks, so there's no late repeats of the quizzes or anything, because once FSO gives your classmates the answers, then I can't really give you a free shot at the quiz. So the quizzes need to be done by their deadline, but they can be taken at any time. And if you want to just knock them all out, that's great. Excellent. All right. Well, if that's all, then you are dismissed. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next Monday for the next class, but your activities will not be due until Tuesday. So go ahead and get started on them and let me know Monday if you have any questions. Thank you all for being here.